Don't show up. You'll ruin your sister's wedding. Those were the 9 words my mother said to me on a Tuesday afternoon that erased 26 years of trying to belong in my own family. My name is Emily Carter, I'm 31 years old, and 5 years ago I was sitting in a rental car outside the Riverside Grand Ballroom in St. Louis, Missouri, watching 212 guests walk into my sister's wedding while I stayed parked in the far corner of the lot because my own parents said my presence would destroy the day. If you've ever been told you didn't belong somewhere you had every right to be, stay with me for this story. And before I take you back to the phone call that changed everything, take a second to like this video and subscribe if stories about underestimated people finding their strength resonate with you. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there right now, so drop that in the comments while you listen. Now let me take you back 5 years earlier, to the moment my family made it clear exactly where I stood. It was April 14, 2019, 3:42 in the afternoon. I remember the time because I was standing behind the service bar at a wedding venue where I worked part-time as a banquet server, polishing champagne flutes that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. My phone buzzed in the pocket of my black apron and my mother's name lit up the screen. I smiled when I answered. That was my first mistake. Emily, she said, her voice tight in that controlled tone she used whenever she had already made a decision and didn't want to hear anything back. We need to talk about Sophie's wedding. My sister Sophie was getting married that Saturday. 300 guests, a 12-piece jazz band, a custom cake flown in from Chicago, and a venue that cost $48,000 for one night. The Riverside Grand Ballroom. At the time I didn't know that building would eventually change my life. Of course, I said. Do you need help with anything? There was a pause on the line. The kind of pause that stretches just long enough for your stomach to start sinking before the words even arrive. Then she said it. Don't show up, Emily. You'll ruin it. I actually laughed at first because I thought she was joking. What do you mean? I asked. Mom, I already booked my flight. I land Friday night. Cancel it, she said. No apology. No hesitation. Just a decision delivered like a weather report. Sophie is under a lot of stress right now and she doesn't need any drama. Drama. That word had followed me around my entire life like a label someone had stuck on my back when I was a kid. If Sophie cried, it was sensitivity. If I asked a question, it was drama. If Sophie made a mistake, the family rallied around her. If I made one, it became a story people repeated at Thanksgiving. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. Mom, I said slowly, I haven't even spoken to Sophie in 3 months. What drama? Exactly, she replied. Let's keep it that way this weekend. A group of guests walked past the bar laughing, dressed in suits and pastel dresses, the kind of people who had no idea what it felt like to be quietly removed from their own family's life. I watched them while my mother kept talking. We've worked very hard to make this wedding perfect, she continued. Your sister deserves a day without tension. And I'm the tension? I asked. Another pause. Emily, she said, in the voice parents use when they're explaining something obvious to a child. You always find a way to make things about you. Something inside me went very still. Not angry. Not crying. Just quiet. The way a room feels after the music stops. So you don't want me at my sister's wedding, I said. It's better for everyone, she replied. I waited for her to soften. For her to say something like we'll celebrate later, or this is temporary, or I'm sorry. She didn't. The line went silent for 3 seconds, then she added one final sentence that made everything perfectly clear. Please respect this, Emily. Don't come. The call ended. I stood there holding my phone while the wedding reception around me continued like nothing had happened. A server brushed past carrying a tray of champagne. The band started playing a Frank Sinatra song. Somewhere in the ballroom 200 people were celebrating love and family and belonging. And I was standing behind a service counter realizing that I had just been disinvited from my own sister's wedding by the two people who were supposed to defend me. I wish I could say that moment shocked me. But the truth is, it didn't. It just confirmed something I had slowly learned over 26 years in the Carter household. In our family, Sophie was the future, and I was the complication everyone preferred to manage quietly. What I didn't know while I stood there polishing those champagne glasses was that the building I was working in, the Riverside Grand Ballroom, the same place where my sister would say her vows without me, would one day belong to me. And 5 years later, the Carter family would walk through those same doors again, only this time, they wouldn't be deciding who was allowed inside. I learned early in the Carter family that love was not measured in words, it was measured in numbers. Numbers like $41,000, which was the price of the silver BMW 3 Series my parents gave Sophie on her 16th birthday. They parked it in the driveway with a giant red ribbon across the hood while our neighbors stood on the sidewalk clapping. My gift that same year was the family laptop from 2008 with a cracked corner on the screen and a battery that lasted 30 minutes if I was lucky. My mother smiled when she handed it to me and said, "This still works perfectly fine, Emily, you should be grateful." 2 years later when college acceptance letters arrived, the numbers became even clearer. Sophie was accepted to Northwestern University. Tuition was $72,000 a year, not including housing, books, or travel. My father called it an investment in her future and wrote the first tuition check that same afternoon. I was accepted to the University of Missouri, a solid state school with a total cost of about $22,000 a year. When I asked if they could help with tuition, my father sat across from me at the kitchen table with a calculator and a yellow legal pad and explained the situation as if he were presenting quarterly earnings to a boardroom. "Sophie has exceptional potential," he said, tapping the pen against the paper. "Her degree will open doors. We have to be strategic with our resources." Strategic meant Sophie received everything and I received advice. I took out $38,000 in student loans and worked 2 part-time jobs during my freshman year. One at a campus coffee shop that opened at 5 in the morning and another on weekends at a catering company that specialized in weddings and corporate banquets. I told myself it did not matter. Sophie needed more support. That was the story everyone in our family told, including me. But the pattern kept repeating. Small moments stacking up year after year like receipts. Sophie's senior year spring break in Cancun cost $6,000. My spring break was 3 extra shifts pouring coffee for exhausted college students studying for finals. When Sophie graduated, my parents hosted a party in the backyard with a catered dinner, white tents, and a jazz trio from St. Louis that my father paid $4,000 to perform. There were 80 guests and a photographer capturing every moment while my mother gave a toast about how proud she was of her brilliant daughter. When I graduated 2 years later, my parents drove down that morning, stayed for the ceremony, took a single photo in front of the administration building, and left before dinner because Sophie had a networking event they did not want to miss. My mother hugged me quickly in the parking lot and said, "We are proud of you too, Emily," in a tone that sounded like an afterthought. I learned not to react. That was another unwritten rule of our family. Sophie could be emotional and dramatic and it was considered charming. If I ever showed frustration, it became proof that I was difficult. I heard the phrase so many times growing up that it almost felt like my middle name. Emily is just sensitive. Emily always makes things complicated. Emily turns everything into drama. By the time I turned 23, I had developed a survival strategy that worked surprisingly well. I stayed quiet, I watched everything, and I worked. The catering job from college eventually led me into the world of event venues. Weddings, corporate galas, charity auctions, engagement parties. I worked wherever someone needed an extra pair of hands. Banquet server, setup crew, coat check, bar assistant. The pay was never glamorous, but the education was priceless. I learned how venues priced events, how contracts were negotiated, how a ballroom could transform from a business conference with projector screens at noon into a candlelit wedding reception by 6 in the evening. I learned that a venue charging $48,000 for one night could host over 100 events a year. I started doing the math in my head during slow shifts while folding linen napkins or polishing silverware. $48,000 multiplied by 100 events was $4.8 million in annual revenue before catering upgrades, bar packages, or service fees. It fascinated me. Venues were not just buildings. They were systems. Logistics, timing, staffing, pricing, contracts, all moving like gears in a machine that most guests never noticed because they were too busy celebrating. By the time Sophie got engaged at 27, I had already worked in 11 different venues across Missouri and Illinois. I had carried trays through kitchens the size of basketball courts, memorized seating charts for 200 guests, and watched planners negotiate contracts worth more than my yearly salary. Sophie's engagement announcement happened at my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon with champagne and a small diamond ring that caught the sunlight from the kitchen window. My mother cried happy tears. My father opened a bottle of 12-year-old scotch he had been saving for a special occasion. Sophie held out her left hand so everyone could admire the ring and said the wedding would be held at the Riverside Grand Ballroom because it was the most elegant venue in the city. I remember smiling and nodding like everyone else while a quiet thought crossed my mind. I had worked there twice before as a banquet server. I knew exactly how that building operated, how many staff members were required for a 300-guest wedding, how the bar packages were structured, how the ballroom rental fee alone could cost more than some families earned in a year. It was the kind of place designed to make people feel important for one perfect evening. At the time I had no idea that the same building would eventually become the center of my own story, or that 5 years later the Carter family would walk through those doors again under very different circumstances. 3 days after my mother told me not to come to the wedding, I still showed up in St. Louis anyway. I told myself I was only there to return the bridesmaid dress that had been hanging in my closet for 2 months, but the truth was more complicated than that. Part of me still believed that if I stood in front of them, if they saw my face instead of hearing my voice over the phone, something might change. I landed at Lambert International Airport on Friday evening just after 6 o'clock. The sky outside the terminal was turning orange with the last light of the day and the temperature was 72 degrees, warm enough that people were walking through the parking garage without jackets. I picked up the cheapest rental car on the lot, a gray Nissan with 112,000 miles on the dashboard, and drove 20 minutes toward the hotel where my parents and Sophie were staying. The entire time my phone remained silent. No messages asking if I had arrived safely, no update about rehearsal dinner plans, nothing. Around 7:30 I parked outside the hotel and sat there for almost 10 minutes watching people come and go through the glass entrance doors. At one point I saw my father walk through the lobby carrying a garment bag that probably held his tuxedo for the ceremony. He did not see me sitting in the car. I considered walking inside. I imagined stepping up to the front desk, asking for the Carter wedding party, riding the elevator upstairs and knocking on the door of Sophie's suite. But I already knew how that conversation would end. Instead I started the car again and drove toward the Riverside Grand Ballroom. The building sat along the riverfront about 15 minutes from downtown, a restored historic structure with tall windows and stone columns at the entrance. I had worked there twice before, both times for large corporate events where the ballroom had been filled with round tables and projector screens. That night it looked completely different. Trucks from a floral company were parked along the side entrance unloading tall white arrangements that would line the ceremony aisle the next morning. Through the open loading dock doors I could see staff members moving chairs across the polished floor in perfect rows. The place smelled like fresh flowers and furniture polish, a scent I recognized from every wedding venue I had ever worked in. I pulled into the far edge of the parking lot and turned off the engine. For a few minutes I simply sat there watching the building. The lights inside the ballroom glowed warm against the darkening sky. Somewhere inside those walls a team of workers was preparing the space where my sister would say her vows the next day. I wondered if any of them noticed the irony that the bride's sister had been told not to come. At 8:10 my phone buzzed with a message from Sophie. It was the first time she had contacted me since the engagement party months earlier. The message was short. Mom said you might still try to come. Please do not make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the words for a long moment before typing a reply. I wrote congratulations and I hope tomorrow is everything you want it to be. Then I deleted the message and locked my phone instead. There was nothing I could say that would change the situation. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but preparations had started hours earlier. I drove back to the venue around 2:30, parking in the same corner of the lot where I had been the night before. One by one the guests began arriving. Men in navy suits, women in pastel dresses, couples carrying wrapped gift boxes toward the entrance. Valet attendants in black uniforms opened car doors and directed people toward the front steps. I recognized several relatives from my father's side of the family as they walked into the building laughing and adjusting their jackets in the sunlight. None of them noticed the gray rental car parked across the lot. At 3:15 a white limousine pulled up to the entrance. I knew it was Sophie before she even stepped out because the photographer immediately raised his camera and the bridesmaids gathered around the door of the vehicle. When she emerged in her wedding dress the crowd near the entrance clapped and someone shouted how beautiful she looked. Even from the distance of the parking lot I could see the sparkle of the beaded fabric catching the afternoon light. My mother stood beside her adjusting the veil while my father spoke with the event coordinator near the steps. For a moment I watched them through the windshield like someone observing a movie scene from outside the theater. My chest felt strangely calm, almost empty. I expected to feel angry or heartbroken, but the emotion that settled in instead was something quieter. Clarity. I realized in that moment that nothing about this situation was temporary. This was simply how my family worked. They had built an entire celebration that did not include me, and the event would move forward exactly the same whether I was there or not. A black sedan pulled into the parking space next to my car and a middle-aged couple stepped out dressed for the ceremony. The man glanced at me through the window and smiled politely. "Are you here for the Carter wedding too?" he asked. I paused for a second before answering. "Not exactly," I said. Then I started the engine and drove out of the parking lot, leaving the Riverside Grand Ballroom behind as the ceremony preparations continued without me. I drove for nearly 40 minutes without choosing a destination. The streets of St. Louis blurred past the windshield while the late afternoon sun reflected off storefront windows and traffic lights. At some point I crossed the Mississippi River Bridge without realizing it and ended up on the Illinois side, pulling into the parking lot of a small riverside park where only 2 other cars were parked. I turned off the engine and sat there listening to the ticking sound of the cooling motor. According to the clock on the dashboard it was 4:23 in the afternoon, which meant my sister's ceremony had probably just started. Somewhere inside the Riverside Grand Ballroom a violinist was playing the processional music while 300 guests watched Sophie walk down the aisle. I imagined my father standing at the front in his tuxedo, proud and smiling, while my mother dabbed happy tears with a folded handkerchief. For a few minutes I allowed myself to picture the entire scene because I knew every detail of how weddings were structured. I knew the timing of the vows, the quiet pause before the rings were exchanged, the applause that followed the first kiss. I had worked enough weddings to understand exactly how that room would feel during those moments. After a while the imagined images faded and the quiet of the park returned. A barge moved slowly along the river in the distance and a couple walked their dog along the path near the water. Life outside my family continued. Exactly the same as it had that morning. I leaned my head back against the seat and stared through the windshield at the pale blue sky. That was the moment something inside me shifted in a way that felt almost mechanical, like a switch flipping from one position to another. For most of my life I had been trying to solve the wrong problem. I had spent years wondering what I needed to change about myself in order to finally fit into the Carter family's expectations. Maybe if I worked harder. Maybe if I stayed quieter. Maybe if I proved I could succeed without causing inconvenience. But sitting in that parked car I realized the equation had never been about me at all. The system itself was fixed long before I was old enough to question it. Sophie had been assigned the role of the future success story and I had been assigned the role of the complication everyone politely tolerated. Once I saw it clearly, something about the realization felt strangely freeing. If the system was not built for me, then I no longer had to spend my energy trying to earn a place inside it. Instead I could build something completely separate. My mind drifted back to the countless venues I had worked in during college and the years after graduation. Ballrooms that could hold 200 guests, 500 guests, sometimes more. Buildings that hosted weddings every weekend, corporate galas during the week, charity fundraisers in between. Places where a single event could generate tens of thousands of dollars in revenue over the course of one evening. I remembered how the event managers spoke about bookings, contracts, and annual calendars that were scheduled 2 years in advance. Venues were not just elegant rooms filled with music and flowers. They were businesses with predictable systems. When I worked those events I was usually standing near the edges of the room carrying trays or clearing tables, but I was always watching. I watched how the managers coordinated vendors, how they negotiated rental fees, how they balanced staffing costs with the prices clients were willing to pay. I knew exactly how many weddings the Riverside Grand Ballroom hosted each year because I had once overheard the operations director discussing it with a planner during a rehearsal dinner. 96 events in a typical season. At an average rental fee of $45,000 per wedding, that meant the ballroom alone generated more than $4 million annually before catering upgrades or bar packages were added. That number had stayed in my head ever since. For $1 million from a single building that most guests only experienced for a few hours. The idea settled quietly into my thoughts while I watched the river move past the shoreline. If places like that could exist as businesses, then someone owned them. Someone made the decisions about contracts, pricing, renovations, and staffing. Someone controlled the system that created those perfect evenings where families celebrated milestones and toasted the future. I checked the time again. 5 o'clock. The ceremony at the ballroom would be ending now and guests would be moving toward the cocktail hour where servers passed trays of champagne and small appetizers. For the first time since leaving the parking lot I felt a small spark of curiosity rather than sadness. I wondered who owned the Riverside Grand Ballroom. I wondered how long they had owned it and what it would cost to purchase a property like that if it ever became available. The questions did not feel impossible anymore. They felt like the beginning of a different kind of story, one that did not depend on anyone else's invitation. I stayed in that Riverside parking lot until the sky turned the soft blue of early evening. By the time I drove back across the bridge it was nearly 7:30 and the wedding reception at the ballroom would be in full swing. I knew the schedule almost by memory because every wedding followed the same rhythm. Cocktail hour from 5 to 6. Guests finding their seats at round tables covered in white linen, the wedding party entering the room to applause, the first dance beneath warm lights while cameras flashed. Somewhere inside that building, Sophie and her husband were probably cutting a 5-tier cake while 200 people watched and cheered. I did not drive back to the venue. Instead, I checked into a small hotel near the airport and sat at the desk with my laptop open. For a long time I stared at the screen without typing anything. Then I opened a search bar and wrote 4 words that felt strangely important. Riverside Grand Ballroom owner. The results appeared instantly. The building was owned by a regional hospitality group called Sterling Event Holdings, a company that operated 5 event venues across Missouri and Illinois. Their website listed photographs of elegant ballrooms, outdoor gardens, and waterfront ceremony spaces designed for weddings and corporate gatherings. I clicked through the pages slowly, studying everything the way I used to watch event managers during shifts. Pricing tiers, event capacity numbers, vendor partnerships, sample floor plans. According to the information available online, the Riverside Grand Ballroom could host up to 350 guests and averaged nearly 100 bookings each year. I did the math automatically the way I always did. Even if the rental fee averaged $45,000 per event, that meant the venue alone generated more than $4 million annually before any additional services were included. Catering upgrades, bar packages, service fees, vendor commissions. The numbers climbed higher with every calculation. I leaned back in the chair and looked around the quiet hotel room. The carpet smelled faintly like cleaning solution and the air conditioner hummed near the window. A few hours earlier I had been sitting in a parking lot watching my family celebrate without me. Now I was studying the business structure of the building where the celebration was happening. The difference between those 2 moments felt like a line being drawn across the timeline of my life. On one side was the version of me who waited for invitations and approval. On the other side was someone who understood that the systems behind those invitations could actually be owned. The next morning I drove home to Kansas City and returned to work on Monday like nothing unusual had happened. My job at the time was assistant event coordinator at a mid-sized venue called Maplewood Hall. The position paid $38,000 a year and required long hours, but it gave me something more valuable than the paycheck. Access. I was involved in contract meetings with clients, vendor negotiations, and scheduling calendars that extended 2 years into the future. Every week I saw exactly how profitable the event industry could be when the operations were organized well. Over the next 12 months I absorbed everything I could. I studied the financial reports the way some people studied novels. I memorized how booking seasons fluctuated depending on the month and the city's conference calendar. I learned which upgrades clients were most willing to pay for and how venues structured service charges that increased the final invoice without guests even noticing. At night I took online courses about hospitality management and small business finance. The tuition cost $800 per class and I paid for it using savings from my paychecks and extra shifts managing weekend events. Sometimes I worked 14 hours in a single day, leaving the venue after midnight when the last tablecloth had been folded and the lights turned off. It was exhausting, but there was something quietly satisfying about watching the systems behind each event unfold. I knew exactly where the money flowed, where inefficiencies existed, and where opportunities waited for someone willing to see them clearly. During that year my contact with my family became almost non-existent. My parents sent a holiday card in December with a photograph of Sophie and her husband standing in front of their new house in suburban St. Louis. The message inside the card simply said Merry Christmas and best wishes for the coming year. There was no reference to the wedding or the phone call that had happened before it. At first I thought the silence might bother me, but it did not. The more I focused on building my own path, the less energy I had left for trying to understand theirs. By the time the anniversary of the wedding arrived the following spring, my position at Maplewood Hall had changed. The general manager had promoted me to operations coordinator after noticing how often I volunteered to handle complicated bookings. My salary increased to $52,000 a year and I was given access to the company's internal financial projections for the first time. The documents confirmed something I had suspected for months. Well-run venues were not just beautiful spaces for celebrations. They were powerful businesses built on precise systems, predictable demand, and long-term contracts. The realization felt less like a dream and more like a blueprint waiting to be followed. During my second year as operations coordinator at Maplewood Hall, something happened that changed the scale of my thinking. It was a Tuesday morning in early October and I was sitting in a weekly management meeting reviewing the upcoming event calendar when our general manager, a woman named Karen Mitchell who had worked in hospitality for nearly 20 years, placed a printed financial report on the table. The document showed projections for the next 3 quarters along with notes about industry trends across the Midwest. One section caught my attention immediately. Several independent venues in the region had recently closed after struggling with rising maintenance costs and inconsistent management. Properties that had once hosted dozens of weddings each year were suddenly sitting empty while larger hospitality groups evaluated whether the locations were worth acquiring. I read the report twice before the meeting ended. Afterward, I waited until most of the staff had left the conference room and then asked Karen a question that had been growing in my mind for months. When venues close like that, I asked, who usually buys the buildings? She leaned back in her chair and thought for a moment before answering. Sometimes another hospitality group buys them, she said. Sometimes private investors step in. It depends on the property and the numbers. Then she looked at me with a small curious smile. Why do you ask? I hesitated for half a second before answering honestly. Because I want to understand how someone goes from managing events to actually owning the venue itself. Karen did not laugh the way some people might have. Instead, she folded the financial report and slid it across the table toward me. If you want to understand that, she said, start by learning how the numbers behind the building work. Over the next year, that advice shaped almost every decision I made. I stayed late after shifts studying revenue reports and vendor contracts. I learned how property values for event venues were calculated based on booking history, annual profit margins, and renovation costs. I began saving money with a level of discipline I had never practiced before. Every month a fixed portion of my paycheck moved directly into a separate account labeled investment fund. It started small, $500 at a time, then gradually increased as my salary grew. By the end of that year I had saved nearly $28,000. It was not enough to purchase a property, but it was enough to prove something important to myself. Progress could be measured step by step instead of waiting for sudden opportunity. The second major shift happened when Karen introduced me to a local real estate broker who specialized in hospitality properties. His name was Michael Grant and he had spent more than 15 years helping investors evaluate hotels, restaurants, and event venues throughout Missouri. We met for coffee one afternoon in a quiet cafe near the riverfront. I remember feeling slightly nervous walking into the meeting because I was only 28 years old and my savings account looked small compared to the kind of investments we were discussing. Michael did not seem concerned about that. Instead, he asked a series of practical questions about my experience in venue operations, the types of events I had managed, and the financial patterns I had observed in the industry. By the time the conversation ended, he nodded thoughtfully and said something that stayed with me for months afterward. Most people who attend events see the celebration, he said. You see the system behind it. That is the mindset investors look for. Our conversations continued over the next year. Sometimes we discussed properties that had recently gone on the market. Other times we simply analyzed case studies of venues that had succeeded or failed depending on how they were managed. Slowly I began to understand that ownership was not about luck. It was about preparation meeting the right moment. Nearly 4 years after the day I sat in that riverside parking lot, the moment finally appeared. Michael called me on a Thursday afternoon in early March with a tone in his voice that immediately caught my attention. "There is a property you might want to look at," he said. "The hospitality group that owns it is restructuring and considering selling one of their venues." When he told me the name of the property, I felt the room grow very quiet around me. The venue he was describing was the same ballroom where my sister's wedding had taken place. For a few seconds I did not say anything. Images from that afternoon years earlier returned clearly in my mind. The parked rental car, the guests walking toward the entrance, the moment I drove away before the ceremony began. Michael continued speaking, explaining the financial situation and the potential price range, but I was already imagining the building from a completely different perspective. Not as the place where I had once been excluded, but as a business opportunity that might finally bring every lesson I had learned together. For several seconds after Michael said the name of the property, I could not speak. The office around me was quiet. Except for the soft humming sound of the air conditioner and the distant noise of staff preparing for an evening event downstairs. The same ballroom that had once hosted my sister's wedding was now potentially for sale. Michael continued explaining the situation calmly, the way someone does when discussing numbers rather than memories. The hospitality group that owned the building was restructuring its portfolio, he said, and they planned to focus on larger metropolitan markets instead of regional venues. The property itself was still profitable, but it needed updated management and several renovations within the next 2 years. That combination made it attractive for the right buyer but complicated for investors who were not already familiar with the industry. I listened carefully while he described the estimated valuation. The building, including its parking lot, kitchen facilities, and riverfront location, was expected to sell for approximately $3.2 million. At first the number sounded impossibly large. $3.2 million was far beyond the savings account I had been building over the past 4 years. But as Michael continued speaking, I realized something important. Ownership did not always mean paying the entire amount alone. Many venues were purchased through partnerships between experienced operators and investors who provided capital in exchange for long-term returns. When the call ended, I remained seated at my desk for several minutes staring at the notebook in front of me. I wrote 3 words across the top of a blank page. Riverside Grand Ballroom. Underneath I began listing everything I already knew about the property. Event capacity 350 guests. Average annual bookings 90 to 100 events. Estimated rental revenue approximately $4 million annually including service charges and upgrades. Staffing requirements, vendor relationships, renovation opportunities. By the time I finished, the page looked less like a daydream and more like a business plan. That evening I drove to St. Louis to see the building again. It had been almost 4 years since the day I left that parking lot before my sister's ceremony. When I pulled into the same area near the riverfront, the building looked exactly the way I remembered it. Tall windows reflecting the lights of the city, stone columns at the entrance, and a line of cars arriving for a corporate gala scheduled that night. I did not park in the far corner the way I had years earlier. Instead, I walked through the front doors like someone evaluating a property rather than someone waiting for permission to enter. Inside the ballroom, a staff member was arranging place cards along a long table while servers carried trays toward the kitchen. The layout of the room felt familiar because I had once studied it from the perspective of a banquet worker. Now I was studying it as a potential owner. I measured the distance between the stage and the dance floor, the lighting fixtures attached to the ceiling, the bar stations positioned along the walls. Every detail represented either value or opportunity depending on how the space was managed. After nearly an hour of observation, I stepped back outside and stood near the entrance looking across the parking lot toward the river. The evening air felt cool and steady against my face. For years earlier I had driven away from this building believing that it represented a place where I did not belong. Now the same building represented a challenge that could reshape my entire future. The next week I met with Michael and two potential investors who specialized in hospitality properties. The meeting took place in a conference room overlooking downtown St. Louis. I arrived carrying a binder filled with notes, financial projections, and renovation ideas that I had prepared during the previous days. Instead of presenting myself as someone hoping for an opportunity, I presented the venue as a business I already understood. I explained how small operational changes could increase annual bookings, how updated lighting and sound systems could attract larger corporate events, and how the riverfront location could be marketed more aggressively for destination weddings. By the time the meeting ended, the two investors exchanged thoughtful looks across the table. One of them finally spoke. "You already know this building better than most buyers would," he said. "Why?" I paused for a moment before answering honestly. "Because I once watched an entire celebration happen inside those walls without me," I said, "and I spent the years after that learning exactly how places like this work." The room became quiet for a second, then Michael smiled slightly and said something that sounded less like a question and more like a decision. "In that case, let us talk about how to make this purchase possible." The negotiations took nearly 3 months, and every week felt like a test of whether I truly belonged at that table. The investors Michael introduced me to were experienced men who had financed hotels, restaurants, and apartment complexes across the Midwest, and they were used to working with operators who had decades of industry experience. I was 29 years old with a strong operations background but no history of owning a property. That meant every meeting required preparation that went far beyond confidence. I arrived at each discussion with spreadsheets, projected booking schedules, and renovation plans that mapped out how the ballroom could increase revenue during its first 2 years under new management. We talked about everything from kitchen equipment upgrades to marketing strategies aimed at destination weddings along the Mississippi River. The investors were particularly interested in the operational plan because they knew the building itself was already valuable. The real question was whether the person managing it could transform steady business into exceptional business. During one meeting in April, we reviewed the historical booking calendar from the previous owner. The venue averaged 95 events each year, mostly weddings between May and October, with a few corporate galas during winter months. I pointed out that the ballroom had large windows overlooking the river and a covered terrace that had never been fully marketed for outdoor ceremonies. With the right renovation and advertising strategy, one believed the venue could increase bookings to 120 events annually without sacrificing quality. That single adjustment could raise revenue by more than $1 million over several seasons. The investors listened carefully while I explained the numbers. One of them leaned forward and asked a simple question that stayed with me afterward. "Why are you so certain about these projections?" I answered the only way that made sense. "Because I have spent years watching how venues succeed and fail from the inside. I know what guests remember and what planners are willing to pay for." The room became quiet for a moment, then the older of the two investors nodded slowly. "Preparation," he said, "is the only difference between risk and strategy." By early summer we reached an agreement. The investors would provide the majority of the purchase capital while I would become the operating partner responsible for managing the venue's day-to-day business and guiding its long-term growth. My savings account of $28,000 was combined with a smaller loan I secured through a regional development program for hospitality businesses. Together it allowed me to hold a meaningful ownership stake in the property while still partnering with experienced investors who understood the financial scale of the project. The closing date was scheduled for the first week of August. I remember walking into the conference room that morning feeling both calm and slightly unreal, as if the past 4 years had been leading to a moment that had once seemed impossible to imagine. The paperwork on the table outlined every detail of the purchase agreement, from the property boundaries to the renovation budget allocated for the first phase of improvements. When the final document was signed and the keys were handed across the table, the Riverside Grand Ballroom officially belonged to a new ownership group that included me. The first thing I did after leaving the office was drive directly to the building. It was late afternoon and the riverfront was quiet except for a few pedestrians walking along the path near the water. I unlocked the front doors and stepped inside the ballroom alone. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows and stretched across the polished floor where hundreds of celebrations had already taken place over the years. For a moment I stood in the center of the room, remembering the afternoon when I had once watched guests enter this same building while I sat in a parked car across the lot. The contrast between those two memories felt almost symbolic. Back then I had believed the building represented a door closed in my life. Now it represented a door I had learned how to open myself. Over the following weeks the real work began. Renovation crews replaced outdated lighting systems, upgraded the sound equipment, and redesigned the terrace overlooking the river so it could host outdoor ceremonies during the summer months. I hired a new marketing director and built partnerships with wedding planners across Missouri and Illinois who specialized in large destination events. By the end of the first season under new management, our booking calendar had already expanded beyond 100 events scheduled for the following year. Every time I walked through the ballroom during those early months, I felt a quiet sense of clarity about the path that had brought me there. The building had not changed its purpose. It was still a place where people gathered to celebrate milestones and begin new chapters of their lives. The difference was that I was no longer standing outside waiting for permission to be part of the room. The first year of operating the ballroom moved faster than I expected. Once renovations were finished and the new marketing campaign launched, the booking calendar filled almost immediately. Wedding planners began recommending the venue again because the updated terrace overlooking the Mississippi River created a ceremony backdrop that photographs beautifully during sunset. Corporate clients returned as well after we upgraded the sound system and lighting to accommodate large presentations and formal galas. By the end of the first 12 months under the new ownership structure, the ballroom had hosted 123 events, surpassing the original projections we presented to the investors. Revenue climbed steadily and the building developed a reputation as one of the most sought-after venues in the region. My days started early and ended late. Most mornings began before 8 o'clock with operational meetings, vendor calls, and walkthroughs of the ballroom floor before staff arrived to prepare for the next event. In the evenings I often remained in the building long after the music stopped, reviewing contracts and planning improvements for the following season. The work was demanding, but it never felt exhausting in the way my earlier jobs had. Each decision I made now carried the quiet satisfaction of ownership. The systems I had studied for years were finally operating under my direction. Almost 5 years passed since the day my sister's wedding took place inside those walls. During that time my contact with my family remained limited to occasional holiday cards and short messages on birthdays. Sophie and her husband eventually moved into a larger home outside St. Louis and started building their own routines, while my parents continued living in the same house where we grew up. The distance between our lives became normal, almost expected. I focused on running the venue and expanding its reputation across the region. Then one Monday morning something happened that brought the past unexpectedly back into view. I was sitting in my office reviewing vendor invoices when my event coordinator, a young planner named Julia who handled most of our client communication, knocked on the door holding a printed contract request. She placed the document on my desk and said there was a potential booking inquiry for the following spring. According to the request, the client wanted to reserve the ballroom for a large anniversary celebration with approximately 250 guests. The event description included a formal dinner, live music, and a short presentation honoring the couple being celebrated. None of that was unusual. The ballroom hosted similar events every season. What caught my attention was the last name printed at the top of the form. Carter. For a moment I thought it might simply be a coincidence. Carter was a common name across Missouri. But as I continued reading the request, I noticed the first names listed beneath the contact information. Sophie and Daniel Carter. My sister and her husband. They were planning a 5-year anniversary celebration and had contacted the ballroom through the public booking form on our website. Julia continued speaking while I studied the document. She explained that the couple had requested the venue because they remembered attending a beautiful wedding there years earlier and believed it would be the perfect place to celebrate their anniversary with friends and family. They had no idea who owned the property now. From their perspective, the building was simply an elegant location they had once enjoyed. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the paper for a long moment. 5 years earlier I had sat in a parked car outside that same building while their wedding took place without me. Now they were requesting to host another celebration inside the venue I owned. The symmetry of the situation felt almost surreal. Julia asked whether we should proceed with the standard booking process. I told her yes. She scheduled a planning consultation for the following week so the clients could visit the venue, review menu options, and finalize the contract. I did not attend that initial meeting. Instead, I listened from my office while Julia gave them a tour of the ballroom and terrace. I recognized my sister's voice almost immediately, even though I had not heard it in years. She sounded cheerful and excited as she walked through the room, describing how wonderful the space looked after the renovations. She mentioned that the building seemed even more beautiful than she remembered from her wedding day. I stood quietly near the office doorway while the conversation continued down the hallway. For the first time in a long while I felt a mixture of emotions that were difficult to define. Not anger and not satisfaction exactly, but something closer to perspective. 5 years earlier my presence had been considered a complication for that celebration. Now the same family was planning another event inside a building that operated under my decisions. The roles had changed completely, yet the room itself remained the same elegant space where people gathered to celebrate their milestones. I stepped back into my office and closed the door gently, allowing the tour to continue without interruption while the anniversary event moved forward through the normal booking process. The planning process for the anniversary celebration unfolded exactly the same way it did for every other client who booked the ballroom. Julia coordinated menu tastings with the catering team, the couple selected floral arrangements for the reception tables, and the event timeline was drafted with the same careful attention we gave every major celebration hosted inside the venue. From the outside there was nothing unusual about the booking. 250 guests were expected, a live jazz band had been reserved for the evening, and a presentation segment was scheduled where family members would share stories about the couple's 5 years of marriage. I reviewed the contract quietly in my office one afternoon after Julia finalized the details. The rental fee for the ballroom, terrace access, catering services, and staff coverage totaled $87,000. It was a large event by any standard, but still well within the range of celebrations we hosted throughout the year. The document included a familiar list of names in the guest section. My parents were listed among the attendees along with several relatives from my father's side of the family. Reading the names felt strange, not because I had avoided thinking about them, but because their presence on that list existed within a completely different context than before. Years earlier my place in those gatherings had depended on their invitation. Now the gathering itself depended on the venue operating under my direction. I signed the approval line at the bottom of the contract and handed it back to Julia so the booking could move forward. Over the next several weeks the planning meetings continued. Sophie visited the venue twice with the event team to review table layouts and lighting options. I remained out of those meetings intentionally, allowing the staff to handle every detail the same way they would for any client. The building itself had changed significantly since the day of her wedding. The renovated terrace now featured soft overhead lighting and glass railings that overlooked the river, while the ballroom's updated sound system allowed the band to perform without the echoes that once filled the room. During one walkthrough I listened from my office as Sophie commented on how beautiful the improvements looked. She told Julia the venue felt even more elegant than she remembered from years earlier. Her voice carried down the hallway clearly enough that I could hear the quiet excitement in it. The moment felt almost surreal. 5 years earlier I had sat outside this building wondering what the celebration inside looked like. Now I was listening from inside the building while my sister admired the improvements I had overseen. The week of the anniversary celebration arrived quickly. On the morning of the event the ballroom was already filled with activity by 8 o'clock. Floral arrangements arrived from the vendors shortly after sunrise, followed by the catering team preparing the kitchen for the evening dinner service. Staff members polished glassware, aligned table settings, and tested the lighting sequence for the presentation portion of the event. I walked through the ballroom floor during the early preparations the same way I always did before a large celebration. The polished wooden dance floor stood at the center of the room surrounded by round tables dressed in white linen and gold accents. Through the tall windows the Mississippi River moved slowly beneath the afternoon sun, reflecting the kind of calm view that had made the venue so popular for weddings and anniversaries. Around 3:30 the first guests began arriving. Valet attendants opened car doors near the entrance while soft music played through the ballroom speakers during cocktail hour. From my office window overlooking the front steps I recognized several faces stepping out of cars, including relatives I had not seen in years. My parents arrived shortly after 4 o'clock dressed for the evening celebration, walking through the entrance exactly the way they had on my sister's wedding day years earlier. The difference this time was that the building belonged to a company I helped lead. I watched the arrival quietly for a moment before turning away from the window. The event was proceeding smoothly, and the staff handled each stage of the evening with the same professionalism we offered every client. Guests moved through the cocktail hour into the ballroom where dinner would be served, while the band tuned their instruments near the stage. The anniversary celebration had begun, and for the first time in my life my role in that room no longer depended on anyone else's invitation. By the time dinner service finished the ballroom was filled with the kind of energy that only comes from a room full of people celebrating something meaningful. The band had begun playing soft jazz between courses and the lighting system dimmed gradually to create the warm golden atmosphere that guests often described as elegant in their reviews. From the operations office I watched the flow of the evening through the security monitors and occasional glances into the ballroom itself. Everything was running exactly the way it should. Staff members moved between tables carrying trays with practiced precision, the bar stations handled the steady line of guests without delay, and the kitchen delivered each course according to the timeline Julia had carefully designed earlier that week. Around 7:30 the stage lights brightened slightly for the presentation portion of the evening. According to the schedule this was when Sophie and her husband would stand near the dance floor while family members shared short speeches celebrating their 5 years of marriage. I stepped out of the office and walked quietly along the hallway that led to the ballroom entrance. From that position I could see nearly the entire room without interrupting the event. Sophie stood beside Daniel near the center of the floor, smiling while guests applauded after the first speech. My parents sat at a table near the front of the room surrounded by relatives and close friends. They looked proud and relaxed, the same expressions I remembered from years earlier during the wedding celebration. For a moment I simply observed the scene in silence. There was no bitterness in the feeling, only a quiet recognition of how much had changed in 5 years. Back then I had watched the celebration from outside the building, unsure where I belonged. Now I was standing inside the same room with complete clarity about my role in it. The speeches continued and the guests laughed at stories about Sophie and Daniel's early years together. After the final toast the band began playing again and several couples moved toward the dance floor while the staff prepared the dessert service near the kitchen doors. Julia approached me briefly to confirm that everything was running according to schedule. I thanked her and told her the event looked excellent. She nodded and returned to the ballroom to coordinate the next stage of the evening. A few minutes later, one of the investors who occasionally visited the venue during major events stepped into the hallway beside me. He had arrived earlier that evening to observe the operations team during the celebration. He glanced toward the ballroom and then looked at me with a small smile. "This is one of the best-run events we have had this year," he said. "The room feels effortless." I appreciated the compliment because the effort behind that feeling had taken years to build. When the dessert course was served and the music shifted toward livelier songs for dancing, I made a quiet decision. Instead of remaining in the hallway, I walked toward the ballroom entrance and stepped inside. The movement was subtle enough that most guests did not notice. I simply crossed the room toward the back of the space where Julia was speaking with the event photographer. She turned when she saw me and asked if I needed anything. I told her everything looked perfect and thanked the team for their work. A few guests nearby glanced in my direction, recognizing me from previous events hosted at the venue. Word traveled quickly through rooms like this when someone associated with the property appeared on the floor. Within a few minutes, several planners and vendors approached to greet me briefly before returning to their tasks. The interaction naturally drew a small amount of attention from nearby tables. Eventually, Sophie noticed the exchange and looked toward the back of the room with curiosity. Our eyes met for the first time in several years. At first she seemed slightly confused, perhaps trying to place how I fit into the environment of the event. Then recognition appeared in her expression as she realized who I was. The room itself remained lively with music and conversation, but the moment between us felt unexpectedly calm. I did not approach the table or interrupt the celebration. I simply nodded politely in acknowledgement and continued speaking with the staff near the entrance. After a moment, Sophie leaned toward Daniel and said something quietly before looking in my direction again. My parents followed her gaze and their expressions changed in a way that suggested they were beginning to understand the situation. They were guests attending an anniversary celebration inside a building that now operated under my leadership. The realization did not need to be announced over the microphone or explained with dramatic words. It was already clear in the way the evening unfolded around them. The ballroom lights reflected softly across the dance floor while the band played another song and guests continued celebrating without interruption. For me, the significance of the moment was not about recognition or confrontation. It was about standing inside a room where I once believed I did not belong and understanding that the path I had chosen had quietly rewritten the story. The music continued and the celebration carried on exactly the way it was meant to. Guests filled the dance floor while servers moved quietly between tables, clearing dessert plates and refreshing glasses. From the outside, nothing about the evening looked unusual. It was simply another successful event inside a ballroom designed for moments like this. I remained near the back of the room for a few minutes longer, speaking with Julia about the schedule for the final portion of the evening. Around 8:45 she excused herself to coordinate the final round of service before the band began the last set of music. When I turned back toward the ballroom floor, I noticed my father standing a short distance away from the table where my parents had been seated earlier. He looked older than I remembered, his hair more gray than it had been 5 years ago, but the way he stood with his hands folded in front of him was exactly the same. For a moment neither of us said anything. The music filled the room and the sound of guests laughing carried across the dance floor. Finally he spoke in a quiet voice that almost sounded uncertain. "I did not know you worked here," he said. I considered the words for a second before answering. "I do more than work here," I said calmly. "I help run the place." He glanced around the ballroom as if seeing the building for the first time in a different way. The lights reflecting across the polished floor, the staff moving confidently through the room. The quiet order behind the celebration. My mother approached a moment later and stopped beside him, her expression shifting between surprise and something that looked almost like realization. For years I had imagined what it might feel like to have a conversation like this, but when the moment finally arrived it did not feel dramatic or tense. It felt steady, like the end of a long equation finally balancing. Sophie and Daniel remained near the dance floor greeting guests and posing for photographs while the band played another song. I did not walk over to interrupt them and they did not approach me. There was no need for confrontation or explanation in the middle of a celebration meant for them. My father nodded slowly and looked toward the terrace where several guests had stepped outside to watch the river at night. "You did well for yourself," he said after a moment. The sentence was simple but the meaning behind it carried more weight than I expected. I thanked him quietly and told them I hoped they enjoyed the rest of the evening. Then I stepped back toward the hallway so the celebration could continue without distraction. The final hour of the event passed quickly. Guests danced, the band played their last songs, and the staff began preparing for the closing portion of the night. Shortly before 11 the couple gathered everyone near the dance floor for one final toast, thanking their friends and family for celebrating the anniversary with them. From the operations office I watched the room come together once more under the warm lights of the ballroom. When the toast ended the guests applauded and the music resumed for a final song before the evening concluded. As the last guests left the building and the staff began clearing the tables, I walked through the ballroom floor the way I always did after a successful event. The room looked peaceful again with the chairs pushed neatly beneath the tables and the river visible through the tall windows beyond the terrace. 5 years earlier I had believed that this building represented a moment of rejection in my life. I had thought the story ended in a parking lot outside the celebration. Standing there that night I understood something different. The story had never been about being invited into someone else's room. It had been about learning how to build a life where I no longer needed anyone else to decide whether I belonged. The ballroom lights dimmed gradually as the staff finished their work and the quiet of the riverfront returned outside the windows. I stood there for a moment longer looking across the empty dance floor before turning off the final light and closing the doors for the night.